Hello everybody, it's Monday and we're back here in the shed today on the 66 Mustang Coupe, and the parts have arrived for the front section of the car where the damage was covered up by the bitumen. So I've unpicked this front end section, we've filled it out. You can see that that's the old piece there, and that's the new one ready to go on. These parts have come from Mustang Classic Parts in Brisbane. That one will go back into there once we get it all cleaned up. But you can see inside here, you can actually see clearly the damage that we were talking about the other day. You can see it's all creased through there and it's pushed back into here. It's actually supposed to look like this panel down here on the floor. That's the new one. You can see how clean and straight that is, and a really good panel, and it's all zinc undercoated as far as the weld through primer is concerned. So I'm going to chop this off and then we'll make progress and show you how we put it all back together. Get that panel out of the way. So good to get that rubbish out of the way. Yeah. So now we'll proceed to clean up these edges and unpick the weld so that the new panel can go into there. Beautiful. I just wanted to show you the process of making this clean enough to weld will include, on the back side you can see I've cleaned it as well. Got rid of all the bitumen and the paint. The reason I do that is even when the metal gets hot on this side and the bitumen or whatever the paint is actually smokes through, it can also contaminate your weld, make your weld process not as clean as you'd like it to be. The other thing I wanted to detail in this video to show you, we haven't cleaned this up or completely finished cleaning this up yet, but with the bottom chassis rail frames on these cars, they did actually do a gal finish on them. And that's what you can see there. You can see it's got a zinky look to it. That's the clean metal when the gal's gone. You have to get rid of this gal, otherwise it will contaminate your plug welds through here, and you'll find every second or third or every single weld is not satisfactory enough. We're talking about structural here, so we have to make sure that the welds work extremely well, and I always test them by trying to separate the panel with a chisel as I go, just to check that, make sure that the penetration is happening and that we're actually joining the both metals together. With a MIG you can actually have the MIG weld sit up on the plug weld and only weld this side of the panel and not weld through onto the other side. So we've got to get rid of all this gal, even through there. I think you can see it just there, the difference in the colour. That's like a whiter grey. That's clean. That's still got gal on it. Gal's very detrimental too when you burn it with a welder to breathe it. It's not good. If you're welding your panels or doing something on your classic car and you get the white sort of flame look patch off the smoke off the side of the weld, you know you've got gal happening. You've got to clean it off and make sure the weld's penetrate and join the two bits of metal together. Okay everyone, what we've done is we've stepped ahead quite a few steps here, but you don't want to see me pulling off the old panels and getting them out of the way. You saw us cut that off, and then we had to make sure that the edges where the new panel joins up is cleaned up and get rid of the old metal there. So we've done all that, and what I've done is actually put them in place and tacked them in position, and I'll just go through some little tips and tricks that might help you out if you're actually doing this at home in your own backyard. First of all, the thing is with these panels is to make sure that the metal is very clean. You'll see here that I've taken the primer undercoat off the new panel. A lot of people say you can just weld through it, and you can just weld through it, but anything that can catch fire and contaminate that weld to me is not a good idea. So we get rid of that, and we get rid of it on both sides. You'll see on the inside here, we've done the skirt, that all of the bitumen is cleaned off. You don't want a fire starting from the other side, because you know, when you weld through you can see the heat mark there. If you've got bitumen on this side and it catches fire and little fire happens and you get the smoke pouring around and it comes around into the gas in the welder, you're getting impurities into your weld also. So I just like to go that extra mile. Make sure the panels are clean both sides, and that way you're going to make sure that your weld is successful. As I do these welds, the plug welds, you have to make sure that they don't actually just sit on top and not actually contact the two bits of metal together. So as I'm going through, I'll just test it. So we've got the section here, and you can see the welds have been done. I'll test it with a chisel and a hammer to make absolutely certain that this metal is welded together. And you can see from that the weld is doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, so you need to always make sure the penetration is good, and that you know, just periodically check with the chisel and the hammer to make sure your welds are actually joining the two bits of metal together. Alrighty, so when you put your weld through primer on, and I use a silver one, and this is actually comes from the aftermarket company in the silver weld through as well. You need to make sure that when you've got your holes for your plug welds to happen, that the weld through primer behind that is cleaned off. So you need to put your drill in there, and you can see with all of these they've got these little drill marks to actually clean the metal, so when you do the plug weld you're striking on the back metal straight away. Just want to show you the actual technique that I do when I'm welding. Come in close, you can see the edge of the wire. So when you go to do one of these plug welds, you start on the edge, don't start in the center. I start on the edge. Make sure that the heat and the penetration and the join is between those two metals. And when you're welding vertically like this, you just make it follow down, because the weld's going to want to run down into the base of the bottom part of the circle, and that'll give you a good join. So I always start on the edge and make sure that I'm actually getting a weld happening between the two bits of metal, and then fill and do the plug weld, and it turns out nice. You can see these ones here, there's one there and one there, and you can tell by the way I've used the chisel that these are joining the way they're supposed to join. So that was another little tip. You always go through with your drill and make sure the weld through primer in the circle is actually cleaned off. Otherwise when you go to strike, sometimes it just bounces off and you don't get the weld that you require. Another thing I wanted to show you, sometimes you'll have a hole, or you put a hole in a position and you've actually missed the panel like I've done here. It happens, and we've got a little hole in the panel that we want to fill. So what I do there is, you can see here is an aluminium block, and I clamp it behind the hole so that when I go to produce the weld, the wire doesn't punch through out the back and make a big cobweb mess out the back of the weld. the aluminium stops it from going through and allows you to fill that hole and just have a nice surface here and a reasonably nice surface on the other side to sand off in it, and then the hole disappears. I'm going to do this one for you so you can actually see how it turns out, and you might find it useful to use yourself. I'll just grab my helmet and my welding gloves and my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. And my glasses. Alrighty. I always trim that stick out wire off. If you've got that much wire sticking out, you don't go in to try and do a plug weld starting like that. You only want about 1/4 of an inch or 3 or 4 mil out of the end of the welding tip, so that you can get in nice and close. There we go. Helps to be connected there. Trim that wire off again. See from that it's filled nicely from the outside. I didn't have to chase the bloody weld all over the place because the wire was burning out the hole. We just released the aluminium block. And let's have a look at that from behind. You can see there, you haven't got all these bits of wire sticking out, and that cleaned up with the grinder will come just nice, and you won't even be able to tell that the hole's there. So that's just another little trick to remember. Just a bit of old aluminium block, and it makes all the difference. Righto, so yeah, the tips: checking your welds with a chisel, using aluminium plate to back up a weld if you're filling a hole, making sure your welds are sitting nicely. Of course, it goes without saying, you have to make sure that the joints, they're clamped together. You can actually see the bottom part of the metal through the hole where you're going to weld is touching the outside. You can see all those ones are reasonably close, and it's not even clamped at the moment. You come down inside and see how nice and neat and tidy it's coming along down in here. Got the welds all the way along there and up the shock tower. That's another little trick. I've got bolts in the panels where the actual shock tower rubber mount goes on the outside, so that tells me that this panel is in exactly the right position. Little tricks like that actually help to make it fit where it's supposed to fit. So that's come up nice and tidy. And that's about it as far as tips are concerned. But continue on, I'll go on and weld this all together and finish it off, and then I'll give you a review over it and just show you how it's turned out. Okay, so we've got all the welding process done. You can see the joins have all been cleaned up. Come up quite nice. You can see the marks. I put in a punch mark that makes it look like a spot weld, so that it's difficult to tell that the repair's been done. Just like to finish it off that way. Clean inside, spot weld punch marks. And it's all looking the way it should look now. Very happy with it. All done. So this is what it looks like in primer. It's all finished off on the edges nicely. Come up nice and clean. Ready now for black engine bay colour. See down through there, it's all tidy. Going to have seam seal put in these gaps here just to finish it off. Come up nice and clean. No more wrinkles.